allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is called pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of December 8, 2014 was included in the list of notices to the Central Record for Livingston County Times and Courier Post, posted on the bulletin board in Town Hall, and has remained continuously posted as required notices under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Roll call, Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Franzen.
Here.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Yates.
Here.
Mayor Barton. Thank you.
This time I'm going to open up the meeting to public comment on agenda items only. You'll notice that we do have a second reading for an ordinance. There will be a public hearing regarding that, so you will have an opportunity to be able to speak on the ordinance during that period. At this time, if you're interested in commenting at our meeting, this evening, this first section of public comment, please raise your hand and be heard at this time. Mrs. Brooks.
Thank you. Fran Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. I have two questions. One is regards the bill list. What is revised software, which we're being charged $4,500 for?
That is for a redesign and management of our website.
And who is revised software?
Company that,
Would you speak up?
there is a company nationally known that does municipal websites.
So this is not a company this is not the sitting people who were doing the website before? Okay. When, did you take bids on this? Did you seek any bids?
We took quotes.
You took quotes, and when was this discussed at a public meeting?
It was not.
It was not discussed at a public meeting.
Well, I should take that back. We discussed it earlier in the year when we talked about that we would try to have it done by the end of the year.
Okay, that may be true, but you never discussed this particular firm or any firms that you received bids on? Bids from?
I didn't receive bids, I received quotes.
Okay, quotes, excuse me, I'll be more specific, quotes.
So, no.
No, so none of this was discussed. Okay, so the public did not have an opportunity to comment about the company you selected.
And they normally do not have an opportunity to discuss the vendors that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, but Doug, it would be nice for people to be able to, the public to be able to ask questions about what services they're going to provide us, because there are people who are fairly computer savvy, who may have some ideas about improving the website and the content of the website. So
We
it
had
would be.
discussion with some people that are computer savvy, because it's generally known that I am not the most computer savvy person in the
I
group.
can't make that judgment.
I'll admit that, so that's, but I do have the ability to find people that I trust that are experts in the field that can give advice on it, and we move forward from there.
And is this system going to be fast enough to, is it going to be a system that will be able to, you'll be able to put up video recordings and audio recordings?
I will not say that definitively at this point, but we believe so.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have has to do with an item under new business, the proposed agreement with Volunteer Fire Company. I know that the previous edition of this said Medford Farms Volunteer Fire Company. Was there a reason why that got changed between the version of the agenda that went up on Friday and today, and seeing this printed version? Is there a reason why there's a difference?
It was put up originally because Sean knew it was a fire company and not a fire district question. She just put it up. The committee has not made that decision officially, so we did not want to make that decision in print.
Okay, so in other words, you haven't decided which company you're going to select as of tonight?
I'm not the one making the decision, so no, I have not made that decision.
Okay, the committee has not made that decision. And will the terms of the agreement be discussed tonight? Or is this just a general discussion that there should be an agreement?
And we have to get there first.
Wherever this discussion leads is wherever we lead.
It's on the agenda. My guess is it'll be discussed. To
Okay.
answer your question.
And do you have any sense for when the agreement's going to be available?
We need to make it first, so, no, to answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the public this time? Seeing none, we'll close the public. Okay. Sorry about that.
John Cooper, 21 Woodside Drive. You have no one here to dissolve the district tonight. One of the questions I have is, how do you intend to fund this? There's nothing in here that's allowing you to take fire district money that haven't been collected and putting them into the general fund. You're dissolving a fire district. The voters of this township voted to fund a fire district. They did not vote to have these taxes placed into the general fund. So how do you intend to fund this fire district?
That's the statutory mechanism upon dissolution.
Say that again, please, I didn't hear you.
The statutory mechanism provides that those funds in that budget will be become part of the townships as by virtue of the statutory dissolution of the district.
So all of the funds that the fire district would have received from our tax dollars would go into the general fund,
Correct.
even though we didn't vote to give those funds to the general fund as a separate line item. So you're telling me, like, if the county decided to do away with the library tax, you guys could still collect and keep the library tax and place it into the general fund?
No, I'm
It's
not
the
telling you
same
that.
situation.
How's that?
You dissolve something, it no longer exists. So therefore, as a taxing entity in the township, it no longer exists. There's nothing in here that gives you the right to do that.
The confusion is that you've just given an example of a county item. A library tax is a county item, it is a county. Whether they dissolve the library district, it would be their money to decide it, not the municipalities.
I'm saying is, there's nothing in this ordinance, nothing anywhere written down that says you can continue to collect a fire district tax if there's no fire district. So how are we going to fund the fire department? We voted to fund the fire district, the taxpayers. It's separate line items, separate elections, separate everything. Not part of the budget. It's not part of the township's general budget. So what are you going to do with the money? You're going to refund it? You're saying that by statute, there's no statute here that says that it gives it to them. You did away with a taxable entity. Separate thing the taxpayers voted on. We didn't vote to give the money to the township, the general fund. Better rethink this.
Any other comments from the public? Kathy, had your hand up.
Kathy Berger, 18 Woodside Drive. My question is on the budget transfers. You're moving 12,000 legal now. Is that anticipated to cover you through the end of the year, or is that just for what you have now and you'll come back again for more budget transfers?
Derek?
That's to cover what we have now, and then if there's any left, we'll do it at the end of our closeout meeting.
Okay.
The transfer number.
Great, but you only have bills through September at this point, so you pretty much have to anticipate you're going to need additional funding. Okay. Think you have funding available, or are we looking at an emergency this year?
No, we should have.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't hear the answer.
We should have.
And I guess I want to comment on what Mr. Cooper said. I think the question is, forget the statutory with the taxing district and all. Okay, you talked about a reserve line item last meeting, about taking the money in. I think the question that everyone has is all of the funding going in as a reserve for fire things, or are you going to divvy it up amongst the budget? And down the road, is it going to get lost in other areas and other appropriations and not actually fund fire services, is what I think the big question is. And we haven't heard that yet. So I'll ask it now. How do you plan on appropriating this money in? And how do you do that? What's the legal mechanism for you to take it into the budget?
Well, understanding we have the public hearing on the ordinance, can we take the question at that point?
Sure,
Okay,
thank you.
all right, thanks. Any other comments from the public at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the public. Need a motion to approve the bills, please. Second.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Franson?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Lee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item is the ordinance of second reading of public hearing, ordinance 2014-4. An ordinance of the Township of Tabernacle, County of Burlington, New Jersey, providing the dissolution of the Tabernacle Fire District Number 1 pursuant to NJSA 40A 5A20. At this time, we will open this.
It's actually ordinance 8.
Okay, there's,
Thank you.
yeah, didn't I say that?
No.
Yeah, it's listed twice.
It's listed twice.
That's why I was asking.
Of course, yeah. At this time, we will take comments on the ordinance 2014-8, dissolution of the Tabernacle Fire District Number 1. And if anyone is interested in commenting on this ordinance, this is the time to do that. Please raise your hand and be called on at this time. Kathy, you can go first.
Thank you. I'm like, can we just get back to my question, please?
Well, I gave you a first crack.
Thanks. Kathy Berger, 18 Woodside Drive. Back to my question. How do you plan on allocating the funds and appropriating them into the budget?
Any volunteers for that? Go ahead.
For next year's budget, we are planning, we have new budget line items that are going to cover those items for the fire department.
Okay, how are you doing it this year? Because tonight you're approving an ordinance, I assume you're going to publish it in the next couple days, and it's in full effect. So don't you need to take the monies in this year?
Any monies that are left when it's dissolved automatically comes to the township.
Right, but how are you going to put it into your budget?
It's going to go in as a revenue.
How are you classifying that? Is it a reimbursement? Are you going to label it reserved for fire
Yeah.
service money?
We can't reserve it. They said it has to go into our surplus. We don't have that.
All right, I think you answered the question. It's a freebie and it's open for anything then. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public.
Fast on that.
Got to get your hand up, Mr. Brooks. I can't, we're not going to wait. So
You're
let's,
not waiting that long, you gotta look.
come on in, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. Stuart Brooks, 78 Moores Meadow Road. The bottom of the first page, the whereas clauses recognize compelling interest in providing coordinated service between the regarding emergency personnel. How does this ordinance do that, now that it's no longer providing for a contract with the rescue squad?
Which page you want?
First,
Start there.
Well, by bringing it under the control and supervision of the township,
Could we have from the committee instead of?
I would like to hear.
well, I'd like
from you.
to extend, respond in general, and just indicate that the general, I wrote the ordinance, so, all right, well, if they want some help, that's fine. If they want to respond first, that's fine too. You're allowed to go first.
Our elected, you're on.
Fair enough. I was just going to indicate that the intent of the ordinance language is to consolidate management of those contract services with the committee. So, you know, it's no secret to anybody that part of the issue that arose over the years and part of the underlying issues in the whole question of dissolution was relations and management and cooperation and harmony. And so here you have one authority that will contract and manage those contracts.
It's also no secret that the ordinance as submitted to the LFB and as submitted here also provided for the township to contract with the rescue squad. Is that still the plan of the committee?
The ordinance has been written, it's been modified. It came out 2 weeks ago with a modified ordinance. You were here for that meeting. So it's the modified ordinance with the sections we're taking out.
But that's not the question I asked. I asked, is it still the plan of this committee to contract with the rescue squad?
The section that was in the ordinance, we talked about that, right? That was in the proposed ordinance we had 2 weeks ago. That section was taken out, right? what you have in front of you is a revised ordinance. What I have in front of me is a revised ordinance,
That's what I have.
which is due to be adopted with the second. That's why we're going through the second reading. So that section's out. So that's the answer. At this point, according to the way the ordinance is written, that will not be happening.
Does the Township Committee have any plans, now or in the future, to contract with the rescue squad, which, as Mr. Lang points out, it has been no secret, that has been the plan of the committee, that was the plan that the subcommittee, Mr. Lee, recommended, that was the plan that you voted against at last meeting.
That's correct.
So that's the question. Can you answer that, please?
I've already given my answer. Any other comments from the committee?
I'm not sure what you're asking, Mr. I'm trying to understand this. You're asking us if we're going to contract with the Tabernacle Rescue Squad?
Do you have any plans now or in the future to contract with the Tabernacle Rescue Squad in the same or similar manner that this ordinance calls for the contract with a volunteer fire company?
I guess what confuses me here is that you're saying the Tabernacle Rescue Squad. I believe we already have a contract with them to do services.
I believe you're mistaken. You don't have a contract. Well, I'll ask Mr. Lang, do you have a contract with the rescue squad?
We
You
have
have a use license and an ordinance.
Well, no,
We have an ordinance and we have an occupancy agreement. And I think it was the merit and mechanics and the pros and cons surrounding such a contractual relationship which in part caused the committee to focus on fire so that we could get this taken care of. And then I expected they'll go back and revisit the merit of having a contract or managing otherwise the delivery of emergency services. But I think that in an effort to simplify and an effort to move things to conclusion, those issues are exactly what has been shelved and tabled, I think, while we get past the fire portion of this.
Well, it's your expectation, and your expectation is similar to mine, that they will revisit the merits of that. And I'm asking them if that is their intention. That's the question. It's really kind of simple.
Well, I would assume we're always, looking at things as we go along in time. I mean, sure, we'll be looking at all the ordinances and all the things that we do as we go down through the ages here.
Right. Well, that sounds to me as if you don't have any concrete plans to do that. Is that a fair understanding of what you're saying?
No, I don't think it is. Myself personally, I'm not speaking for the rest of the committee, but I would like to see us revisit this ordinance in the near future, in the next month or two, just so we can go over all emergency services and quite possibly incorporate everything into this ordinance, even if we have to do it as a revision.
The ordinance clearly calls for coordination and speaks to the compelling public safety interests. And to ask it another way, how long will you be denying residents the satisfaction of those compelling interests? Question mark. How long are you going to take to do this, to leave us hanging out there without satisfying these interests that you've recognized are so compelling?
Well, I do think I'm answering, or I should say, paralleling what Mr. Lang said, that he does anticipate. And I am anticipating this board. I'll bring it up as a motion, that we revisit and in some way, shape, or form revise this ordinance.
I thank you for saying we're given a rough time frame of about a month. Does that time frame square with you, Mr. Lee, or with you, Ms. Brown, or with you, Mr. Franson?
I think when we have an opportunity to look at it, we will. I don't feel comfortable saying we're going to do it during the month of January now. I mean, when we have an opportunity to look at that and all of the ordinances that we have, I'm sure we will.
Well, if a month is too short, do you think you'll get to it in 2015?
Probably.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Mrs. Brooks? Mr. Cooper, you're next.
No, John, go ahead.
No, Mr. Cooper's next, or Mrs. Brooks, you're next. Yeah,
Thank you. This is regarding LoSAP. At the last meeting, you said you would continue to provide LoSAP to the firefighters. Would you confirm that, in fact, that you don't have any present plans to provide LoSAP to the rescue squad?
That's not
No, it's not in the discussion.
Well, it might not have come up for discussion, but in the past, a lot of things haven't come up for discussion. So the question is, do you have any intention of providing or interest in providing LoSAP to the Tabernacle Rescue Squad as well?
And I would go back with the same answer. It's not come up, it's not our intention.
Okay. And when you revisit this contract, will you then be looking at the issue of LoSAP?
They will
With
now.
regard to Tabernacle Rescue Squad?
Yeah, we will now.
They will now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what I'm looking for. Who's going to handle the LoSAP record keeping? Who's going to be responsible for that?
For the emergency squad?
For the fire?
Okay.
The fire?
Mr. Kramer.
Okay, so, my question is if we can't put forth or produce, if the committee can't produce a reasonable wash facility log, how is the committee going to, how is the committee going to, wait until they settle down.
Mrs. Burns, go right ahead.
How will, thank you, how will the committee actually handle LoSAP, which by multiple magnitudes is far more complex? It's a very simple question. Because the wash facility logs are so inadequate. And LoSAP has to be monitored pretty closely. How will that be accomplished?
I'm sure you can.
I have the greatest confidence in Mr. Kramer. I just hope that,
Then why bother asking the question?
well, what I'm saying is I hope that the job is better effective than the wash facility. Thank you.
Mr. Cooper?
John Cooper, 21 Woodside Drive. I'm a little bit confused here. You weren't at the last meeting when they voted to take all the stuff about the rescue squad out.
That's correct.
Mr. Franz was the one who wanted to pull it out. Mr. Lee was opposed to taking it out. Now Mr. Franz is saying we're going to redo it, put it back in.
That's not what he said.
We're going to review it and re-look at it to see if it needs to go back in. Well, why did you bother taking it out if you're going to review it? It just kind of doesn't make sense to me. One guy wants it in, one wants it out. Take it out, now somebody wants to put it back in, the guy who took it out wants to put it back in.
I
guys
think you need to perhaps listen to what I said.
I did listen to what
No, you
you said.
didn't, because all I said was, I would be in favor of reviewing it. I said nothing about, let's put it back in.
Reviewing, putting it back in.
Yeah, big difference.
I have another question. Do you have a rough draft of the contract, proposed agreement with volunteer fire companies?
We don't have any ordinance, I didn't include the ordinance.
Well, you have it on the agenda for tonight.
No, the ordinances, the specific
Contract,
contract.
the contract is on topic for discussion, and I have it written.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public at this time? Any comments from the committee? Seeing none, we'll close the public. We have a first and a second? Do we have a first and a second? I don't remember.
No.
Okay, I need a first. Need a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Any discussion first on the voting on the ordinance?
We're voting on the ordinance.
So is there any discussion among the committee?
Well, Mr. Line, I am allowed to vote on this one, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the ordinance, the way that the ordinance reads. And it's, we can decide now how we want to do this, but
Top of page 2.
on the top of page 3, no, top of page 3, this ordinance indicates we have to have a contract with Medical Farms or Tabernacle Fire. Do we want to enter into that discussion now, or do we want to adopt the ordinance and then discuss the contract at the end of the meeting? At the end?
I'd rather adopt and then discuss it as a separate topic.
It was basically an insert here after you.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Okay.
And I didn't mean to slow you down, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't any discussion among the committee.
Okay. Roll call.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Lee?
No. Resolution 2014-166, authorizing the release of Tabernacle Township executive session minutes. Need a motion, please?
So then,
Need a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Brown?
yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Lee?
Yes. Resolution 2014-167, approving Chapter 159 on Tuckerman Road. Need a motion, please?
Second.
Doug?
This allows us to bring money in from the state DOT grant to pay the contract.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Lee?
Yes. Resolution 2014-168, approving budget transfers. Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Terry? Is Terry here?
Yes, this is just a transfer, cover, which we're going from engineering to legal, a shortfall.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Roll call.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Lee?
Yes.
Thank you.
New business, discussion of proposed agreement with volunteer fire company. Doug, do you want to start us off?
Okay. Back a week of, in November, week of the 18th, I met with the executive committees of Medford Farms Volunteer Fire Company and received the following information. They have 40 members. They estimate 30 are willing to respond initially under the township, and they believe 3 to 4 members will resign and the district is dissolved. I answered questions concerning the funding of the fire company and budget. I also responded to questions concerning the new fire truck. On Wednesday of that week, I met with the executive committee of Tabernacle Fire Company Number 1 and received the following information. They have 32 members willing to work with the township, have 24 members with firefighter 1 certificates. I answered questions concerning budget, the funding and budget for them, and given ideas of how expenses could be divided by their executive committee. And I also answered questions concerning the purchase of the fire truck. Medford Farms Fire Company offers the advantage of a slightly higher number of firefighters and the convenience of one less change. This advantage of the Medford Farms Fire Company is by their own admission they are a divided company. They believe approximately 25% do not want to work under the township. That's based on their numbers, not from the executive committee. A minority of their membership have been vocal and hard fast in their dissent. They have aligned themselves with outside individuals who do not wish to move forward in a cooperative spirit to improve all emergency services in Tabernacle Township. Unfortunately, the Medford Farm Volunteer Fire Company has become litigious in the past, given the current outside influences on the membership, this method may be used again. The Tabernacle Fire Company number 1 has slightly fewer members than the Medford Farm Volunteer Fire Company, but has 21 mutual members, which will provide some continuity if they are chosen. The Tabernacle Fire Company offers a united company who wishes to work with the township to move forward and provide community service approach to fire service. They also have a desire to be part of the emergency service team, which is approach the township has promoted. Based on my discussions with both fire companies and the desire of the township committee to move forward, my recommendation would be to contract with the Tabernacle Fire Company number 1. This will allow for a clean start, a chance for the membership of the Medford Farm Volunteer Fire Company who wish to work with the township, a clear direction to show their commitment to move forward by applying to the Tabernacle Fire Company.
Any questions or comments from them? Or thoughts? Kim and I both met with both companies. We had right around the same time that Doug did. We met with the entire company, first at Medford Farms and then at Tabernacle, with Tabernacle Farms. And clearly, I can tell you that both companies want to move forward, one way or the other. We've endured this long enough. It's time to move forward together. We've been through an awful lot in our community over the last month or so, and it'll be good to get this put to bed. But more importantly, it'll be good for the community as a whole, I think. But clearly, the volunteers that are in both companies are very passionate people and are very committed to their work. And I have a lot of respect for those folks. Do you have any other thoughts? I thought it was a good discussion, both companies.
No, I agree.
I have some questions about the numbers. One company has 40, the other company has 32, and there are 21 joint members. So obviously that means there's 19 in one company and 11, I guess, in the other that are not joint members. But do we know that of the 19 that are not currently joint members, will any of them be coming over if we were to go with Tabernacle number 1? Would any of them go over to Tabernacle number 1? Is there any sense of that, Doug?
I expect a few. I do not expect. Well, by their own admission, they feel that 10 probably won't want to serve. That they may get 8 or 9 additional members who want to come over, based on their own numbers. And based with the discussion I had with the group there were some on both sides of the issue. There were some joint members and there were some just Medford Farms members there also. So, you know, I listened to both sides when we had that discussion, and it was a pretty honest and frank discussion about their general feelings about everything. There will be a percentage in Medford Farms that initially, whether they ever come back or whether they move on to another company or whether they retire from their service, that's, you know, that's the mix that you don't know exactly what it's going to be. But they gave me a pretty honest assessment. At least I thought it was an honest assessment of what their numbers really were. They were very cordial to me, and it was a pretty open and frank discussion. So I think that you will get probably 8 or 9 members that will move from Medford Farms and join Tabernacle Fire once the decision is made, but I don't expect it. Until you make that decision, they're not going to make a commitment.
And do we know if there were any other individuals who were in process or waiting to join either of these two companies? that aren't part of, already part of the company?
I was told that there was some membership that was waiting to see which company they choose, but I do not have a verification of names or anything like that. So I take that as they probably have some people that have expressed an interest, but given what the situation has been for the last few months and that being out in limbo, that nobody wanted to make a commitment until they knew. They didn't want to join, then have to quit and join another company, or they were waiting for the decision. So I'm sure there's a few, but that number.
It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen and I met with them, that I know Tabernacle Fire said whoever has asked for an application, they provided one. Isn't that what they had said?
That's what we were told. That was a question I had. I asked that question to Dave Smith directly, because there's a lot of folks, and there's folks that I've talked to in the community that, they're members of Medford Farms, but they don't want to make any kind of a commitment to Tabernacle Fire until they know what we're going to do. And I can understand, I can appreciate that. I can absolutely appreciate that.
I think you've got to make that decision.
Davis told me the same information, memberships being available.
I just want to make sure you get the same information that we have.
Both of the companies, and I didn't ask this question when we met, but you met with executive boards
Yes.
of each one, and they're both understanding that there was a contract that they would need to
Yes.
committed to with the township.
Yes.
Do they have an understanding about what's in that contract? Probably not. They haven't discussed that. They haven't
At
discussed
that time, no, they weren't particular. My recommendation, at least for the balance of this year and probably a portion of next year, until we, as long that we mimic the current contract that is out there between the district and the Foreign Volunteer Fire Company, at least as a stopgap until we can, so we can mutually discuss it and see if there's any issues with that contract.
This is a question you might have an answer to. One of the things that, some of the feedback that I've gotten is that a lot of the folks that are part of Tabernacle Fire have a strong affection for Medford Farms and the name Medford Farms. What does this, and I probably doesn't have anything to do with us, but there's no reason that the fire company, Tabernacle Fire Company #1, could not change the name at some point, is there?
No. And just so that the committee is aware, the contract that I prepared and proposed has blank for what fire company is going to be contracting, but it's otherwise exactly the same agreement that existed between the commissioners and the Medford Farms Volunteer Fire Company. So the agreement doesn't change in any respect. It's exactly the same. Doesn't mean it can't change in the future, but as proposed, it's exactly the same agreement has historically been in effect between the fire district and Medford Farms Volunteer Fire Company. And from a name change standpoint, there would be nothing that would prevent them from changing their name or registering an alternate name or DBA, that kind of thing.
That would be between the old company and then, wouldn't it, if they want to keep the exact name.
The exact name, I think, would belong to the old company unless and until they relinquished it. But you can modify names even, in a minimal way and still be able to utilize a portion of the name.
My point is a lot of folks have. Medford Farms Fire Company means something to a lot of people. And my only question was, it doesn't prevent
We really can't
name
hear
change
you.
down the road that long, really.
You're saying that the public can't hear
Yeah,
it. No, nothing.
I'm not going to yell.
They certainly have the right to modify their name, use a facsimile name, but they couldn't purposely create the impression that they're the same company. That's all they would be able to do.
Any other questions or comments on the
No, I mean, my concern you know, was around the numbers, and I feel pretty good that the, you know, we'll see that number 32 go a little bit higher, so, you know, if we were to go that way. So that really kind of takes away the concern I had about that, the numbers.
Joe, any thoughts?
No, actually, I feel the same as Rick, I'm just doing quick math. When Doug was, explaining the numbers, he said, right now, there's roughly 10 on the fence. 10, yeah. So if you add 10 to the other one, you're basically same numbers. So it's just a matter of who you guys recommend. Because Rick and I didn't meet with anybody.
But the dissolution would be effective until publication of the ordinance. So the committee would have the ability to review the contract, and Doug could get it in place before publication should you act on the ordinance tonight. I had not previously provided a copy of the ordinance to anyone other than Doug, who I was working on it with, but
Contract.
yeah, the contract, but it was made to be exactly the same as the existing agreement with no changes.
With the fire commission.
Well, except that the fire commission is
Right.
substituted for the committee.
Right.
Otherwise, the terms and conditions are exactly the same.
So it's up to the committee whether we want to approve that with those conditions. And if we do that, we'll need a motion.
I don't think there was a problem with the contract,
No,
I didn't think that.
I think,
So if all you're doing is substituting the township committee for fire commissioners, and then, like I said, we just have to decide on a name, or a company, I should say.
Right. And if we're going to do that, we need a motion. And I can't make it. Or I'm not going to.
Mr. Lee, one comment.
Mr. Cooper, you can't interrupt the meeting. Thank
Mr.
you,
Cooper,
sir.
I'm sorry, we can't take comments at this time, but we will in a few minutes.
I think it's a very important question that needs to be asked.
You'll be given an opportunity, sir. Please allow them to run the meeting.
I'll move for Tabernacle Fire Company #1 based on Doug's recommendation in our meeting with Steve.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
Ready for roll call?
Any
Ms.
other
Brown?
questions or comments? I'm coming, LaShawn.
Okay.
It is. Believe me, it's been a long road.
Never an easy decision.
Roll call.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Lee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item up for discussion is Medford Farms and Medford Park zoning. Pete?
We have come to a final ordinance form, which was distributed and working with Ms. Grogan over at the Pinelands. This would modify the zoning ordinance to make it crystal clear that all of the existing lots, not only Medford Farms but Medford Park, are also existing buildable lots, whether they all presently contain development or not, whether a house is built on 2 or 3 of those lots, and it references the tax map sheets in order to detail the existing lots. It's all been approved by the Pinelands. Doug wants me to make one last clarification before introduction, and that would be to indicate to the Pinelands that we're going to modify the tax map to draw in those dotted lines and assign each lot a lot number.
If that's what they're required to, it makes that clear in the stipulation.
If they're going to require that to make it, out of an abundance of caution, clear that each of those lots is a resulting separate buildable lot. So unless there are any other questions or concerns, I would ask that that be listed for first reading at the first meeting in January, not wanting to bridge the adoption over the new year. And I would ask that we move forward with this.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I think you've wrapped it up, really. I mean, it's taken a while.
Yeah.
But, you know, you went through the process, and I think the people out who are in Metro Park will be happy.
The difficulty, so the committee understands, is that these subdivisions predate modern zoning and planning, predate your land board, okay? And so there's no record in the township of these subdivisions, other than the tax map, which references maps, which cannot be found at the county. So, you know, it dates that many decades ago, okay? So this just brings clarity to it. And what we did was, in order to make it crystal clear for generations in the future, is that we had those tax map pages, I think they were 5 and 6, or 6 and 7, 6 and 8. Those tax map pages that are referenced, digitized and put into digital form, not the whole tax map, but all the pages, but those 2 pages, so that they can be an appendix to the zoning ordinance, and that the township can have clarity, and the Pinelands will also have those, and has those digitized representations of those pages. So there'll be no question, and Bob Perry, efforts won't be frustrated when someone from Medford Park comes in and says he wants a building permit. He goes to the Pinelands for the requisite clearance and is told no. So this would resolve it once and for all. And again, we may make one last massaging of it. My preference would be that we draw the lines on the tax map and assign numbers. We're going to find out if that's absolutely necessary, or at least have some written clarification from Pinelands that you know, they're not going to require that, that they're okay with the tax map sheets as they have been provided. So with that, we'll put it on for January, and the committee will have another opportunity to talk it, but that's where we're at.
Thanks, Pete. Next item is Bud Court landscaping. Doug?
Mr. Peter's been working with that.
I asked that to be discussed as well. The committee will recall that some weeks and months ago, I raised the issue again of the Bud Court top coating. It's been many years. We asked Mr. Pagliuso to come in and discuss the issue with us. I will mention very briefly to the committee that there was some quick work that needed to be done when we got a letter from Roma Bank a year or 2 ago that said, well, we're not going to continue his letter of credit, and that would have required us to actually call the letter, and we began that process, only to then be told, no, it's okay, we'll honor it again, okay? My belief is that they thought we wouldn't notice the letter that came in to Doug and didn't come to me or anyone else that said we weren't going to continue it, which statutorily we were required to act within that time frame. So we did. They rescinded the cancellation of the letter of credit, and we told Mr. Pagliuso at that time that this has been too long, and we don't want our taxpayers to be exposed, and we don't want this to carry on any longer. Nothing really happened. We wrote a couple of demand letters, and then most recently, I wrote a demand that Mr. Pagliuso come in. I called him to explain the importance, and he came to the meeting. And Mayor Barton and Deputy Mayor Lee and other members of the committee indicated that they had some disdain for the fact that it had taken too long. They feel that they're exposed by leaving it open, and it's time, with only one lot left to build on, to get it done. And he told us that he would get back with a plan, and we asked him to do so before the next regular meeting, so it was a month. We never heard from him. And so I raised the issue again at the last meeting and said that we would be discussing it, and that I would be recommending that we take action on the letter of credit. I guess that word got to Mr. Pagliuso, and we got a December 4th letter from Mr. McAndrew that indicates that they would propose completing the landscaping and top coat paving by May 1st. And they have that in writing. They make the point that even if they were forced to go forward at this time, they wouldn't be able to get it done before then now, given the late date and the temperatures. And I frankly agree with that. If the township goes forward under the letter of credit and does it itself, you're going to do it as a rate job, you're going to go out to bid, it's going to be designed, there's going to be engineering work involved. and I don't think you're going to get it done before the spring anyway. But this is the first time that we've got a written indication, let alone from his attorney, indicating that he would have it done by May 1st. May 1st comes and goes and it's not done. On May 2nd, we can file a claim against the letter of credit. If the committee doesn't want to wait, you could do that now, but I don't think we would get, for the reasons indicated, to having it completed at the earliest anyway.
Well, I think if it's not done by May 1st, then that's exactly what we do. Because he's perfectly drug his heels to get to the point where we can do it.
Well, I will tell Mr. McAndrew, assuming I have a unanimous decision on the committee, that on May 2nd, we file a demand against the letter of credit if the work is not completed. Is that accurate?
Joe, you good?
I'm just trying to think what the temperatures are going to be.
In May or April?
Yeah. April's not a great month either.
Yeah, but he kind of drug his heels to get us to this point, so
I
we
know
didn't
he
have
drove
to
his
do it.
heels, but I'm just looking at the top coat. I mean, if it's too cold, we don't want to do it.
I understand that, but it's been a long time for the
It
residents.
has been a long time. The thing is, we're the ones who are ultimately going to have to live with the finished product. And once he does that, then he can ask to be released of his bond.
You want to push back to June 1?
No, I'm thinking middle of May is what I'm thinking,
How about May 1st, weather permitting?
weather permitting.
And if you don't think weather's going to be permitting, they need to get in touch with me, explain the justification, so that we understand what's going on and why.
That's a gray area though, isn't it?
What's that?
Weather permitting, one
Well, they
person's.
should be able to let us know by our mid-April meeting.
I think Doug and our engineer would be able to
Yeah.
opine as to whether or not they've had a reasonable opportunity to complete it by May 1st.
It's gonna be a
I'd like to
warm-
hear from Doug, see what he has to say.
Yeah, I would too. Let's-
We have a job that will be done in the spring on Suey Place Road. So we'll know when the right time is to do it based on what that is. So given that time frame, when we start to do work, they should be able to start to do work.
Right.
It's gonna be a warm April.
Yeah, I mean,
Right
right
now,
now,
sprinklers
you know,
in
a lot
May.
of your asphalt plants are shutting down right now
Yeah. You're not going to get anything right now.
because of the weather. I mean, because if you have a deep frost, I mean, the ground's gonna be heaving and everything else. I mean, I'd be a little hesitant on
What do you want to go to May 15th? Give them a deadline, May 15th?
Why can't we give them, let us know by our workshop meeting in April? They don't have to give it to them.
May 1st, or let us know by workshop in April and come get more time,
That's the
otherwise.
second Monday of the month.
Ask for an update by the second one, see where they're at.
I mean, right now, basically, he just gave us a letter from the tenant.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's up to us whether or not, what the deadline is we want.
If they're gonna go forward, they're gonna know by the second week of April whether or not they're going forward or not.
But you need a drop dead date. You can't just let it.
No, I understand that.
It's gotta,
Yeah, but we can give them a drop dead date in May, in April, I mean, you cannot be satisfied and say, you know what, we've had enough, Mr. Lang's gonna file the demand on May 2nd, or he's gonna come in April and say, look, I'm not gonna deliver an inferior product, your engineer and Doug are gonna agree, and you're gonna give them more time. But otherwise, leave it at May 1st, so May 1st, weather permitting, if you want more time, you need to report to us at an April meeting and get more time. And then we're only gonna give you more time if we're satisfied that you haven't had a reasonable opportunity, given temperatures, to already have it done.
and they proposed May 1st. and it's not-
They proposed May 1st.
So they want to get done as much as.
With all due respect, the second Monday, our workshop meeting, because our second meeting is the last Monday of the month. So I think they should be able to know halfway through the month whether or not they can start the project or not.
In April, right?
In April.
Gotcha.
Agree?
You good with that?
All right, I got it, thank you.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call Colonel Lowe for a report.
Thank you. William Lowe, the Emergency Management Coordinator. There's two items I would like to discuss with the committee. The first is, before it gets too further down the road, I'd like to talk about what happened here Friday night. And I think that with all of the heavy stuff we've talked about, we've overlooked the fact that we kind of came together Friday night. All the emergency services here, the fire company, the rescue squad, OEM, the CERT, supported the Tabernacle Historical Society, Women's Club, and the PTA, and EIEIO, and had a tree ride. There was the Seneca Band had a component here. There were some singers. I never sure where they were from, but somewhere in Tabernacle Elementary School. There were some bell ringers up here. I never did figure out where they were from. There were more cookies and stuff here, and we actually tried to see if we could set a record on how many people we could get in this building. And I think that we probably have got a standard there. It's got about 200 people in it. They were all it was dense packed. And I want you to know, as confusing, not confusing, as difficult as that thing was, as laid out it was, even the weather got along. That there wasn't any complaining, there wasn't any bad stuff, there wasn't any complaints. It was just a good night. I mean, even with people in here so dense packed, you couldn't get to the cookies. There was no complaint. Except for the emergency management coordinator who carefully outlined to the women's club that she had coffee at events like this. But I want you to know it was a good thing. And I don't think we should get too far down the pike before we thank the Historical Society, the Women's Club Association, whatever they are, and the PTA, and all the rest of those, and tell them thanks a lot. And from emergency services, it was a pleasure for us to do this kind of thing and do it the way we did. So I just wanted to bring that up. With that, I would like to present you with the current status of the CERT. What you have here is a copy of the memorandum of understanding between the four townships that are involved. You have a breakdown of the, you want a copy? Do you want a copy too? Your copies are everywhere. You have a breakdown of the towns, the names of all the individuals that have certified by the county and by me and the OEMs to be qualified to be on the CERT team. That means that they've taken 18 hours of basic training as outlined by FEMA. It's broken down into the 4 platoons, which are Tabernacle, Chemung, Bass River, and Medford. It's a interesting thing that we can get the 4 OEMs together to get them to agree on something like that. There's no cost going back and forth. It's purely one based on service and how they'll provide service. The list is interesting. It's a wide range of people that are involved in that. And then last you have the outline of the meetings and the training dates for the next month. Any questions? With none, I will thank you very much for your support.
Colonel, I actually was counting people up here that night. I wanted to let you know that, and in my opinion, we never had more than about 100 or 110 up here.
That's a good political answer because I think the limit on number of people we can have up here is 50. So
that's 147.
That's a fun.
147. So therefore we didn't beat.
We actually had a member of the rec committee down at the bottom of the stairs pulling people back when she thought too many people were up here.
Yeah, but what she failed to realize is that there's a set of back stairs.
And that was the exit. We told people to leave that way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colonel. Committee reports. Pete?
I have nothing in addition to everything we've covered already.
I'm not sure what he's going next. Doug?
I have nothing to add.
That's even better. Township Committee. Mr. Yates?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Franzen?
Steve, I know you'll report on the event Friday night, so I don't want to say too much about it, but I do want to echo what Colonel Lowe said. It was just nice to see the cooperation going on between the emergency service units that were here, the township associations that were involved, and the happiness, really, and the joy. When Santa Claus came off that fire truck and got a mob coming through to try and get out to Mark, it was quite a sight to behold. And I think, the people who put that together and the people who participated in it really should be proud of what they did and how it all came about, because it was a beautiful, beautiful event for our township. So with that, I'll stop.
Mrs. Brown?
I just want to publicly thank the emergency services. We had an emergency in my family in the past week, and from the troopers, fire company, and EMS, I can't thank everybody enough for coming out and helping, and from the bottom of my heart and my family's, thank you so much.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
I've got some coupons. I don't usually get much at Township Committee meeting, except agendas, but I've got some coupons
What are you playing, Ron White?
for, what's that?
What are you playing, Ron White?
I've got coupons for free cancer screenings for Bronx County residents. Mrs. Brooks, can you take these for me? And tear one off and just kind of, if you'd like to take one, you can take one, just pass them through the room, but they're for free cancer screenings at Virtua. Jean Lombardi, who's a nurse over at Virtua, had sent those to us. Don't feel pressure to take one if you don't want cancer screenings too, it's okay.
Somebody else.
The tree lighting ceremony on Friday was awesome. We had a little bit of rain towards the end. I think it was a time for the community to be together and to heal a little bit. It's been a long couple of weeks, but it was a really cool event. The nice part was that, and talking to a lot of residents over the last couple of days, a lot of folks were just excited that we did it, but not just the folks who participated, like the Tabernacle Middle School chorus and the elementary school chorus and the hand chimers. They were from Tabernacle School also, Colonel. The thing that was amazing to me was how many different people were here. I mean, old-time Tabernacle families and a lot of younger folks, and it was just a really, really cool event. So thank you so much to the rec committee and Mark Lemire for emceeing it and kind of leading the charge with your red coat. Please leave that at home. I like your tie though, that was a pretty sharp top. And Santa Claus coming, the participation with the fire company bringing the truck down, that was pretty cool. And it was just a great event and a lot of cooperation. It was something that we desperately needed as a community. And it was a great event, so thank you for the folks that participated in that. That's all I have. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting up to the public for any questions or comments. If you're interested in being heard this evening, please raise your hand, come to the center of the room, and be heard at this time. You have the neighborhood of 3 minutes. Mr. Lemire.
Thank you, Mark Lemire, 32 Washington Way. Well, that's it, because it really was a great event. So I just wanted to thank everybody who participated. The Public Works did a great job. All the emergency services, again, I think when that had a great vantage point watching that fire truck come down the street and have just seeing the kids light up. I mean, we didn't advertise that Santa was going to be there, and who's ever know what Santa's going to do. So it really was a wonderful event. It is a first, and I think we go in our recorded history, so 113 years, we said we're going to do it every 113 years, whether we need to or not. So put that on your calendar, everybody. But based on the participation we had, and again, did you get a count? I mean, I think we had probably at least 300 people. I think we had 3 to 5.
Ms. Russo says we had between 300 and 500 pages.
It really was a fantastic event, and it was so organic to see everybody from every school, every committee, every volunteer. With the emergency services, the fire company, it was such an organic gathering. It really was just one. It had just a tremendous effect on the townships. Next year, based on what the comments I've gotten, next year should be even bigger than that. So I think with little advertising and being the first time, I think next year, put it on your calendar because it's still going to be a non-miss event for everybody. So
might have to rethink the location for the snacks.
We'll do something about that. All right. Well, thanks again for all your support in the next conference.
Any other comments from the public this time? Mr. Brooks.
Kenneth Brooks, Morris Meadow. Which executive session minutes were approved for release?
I'm not sure the date, but the minutes that related to your lawsuit and the prosecutor discussion of the prosecutor appointment. So that was the 28th.
Which month though?
July.
28th,
And what about the one with the underground storage tank?
not released.
Okay, that was an April meeting.
And that issue is not completely done yet.
Okay. So in essence, only one set of executive session.
And the others were all related to issues that are ongoing and in their nature and litigation, or potential litigation.
Okay.
So I try to err on the side of releasing them actually, but those are just not appropriate at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. The other issue I have is regarding the $500,000 that's going to be coming over from, that's in the fire district's money market account, that's going to be going apparently into the general fund and will not be dedicated exclusively for fire protection. Are you planning to use some of that money for renovating town hall?
We really haven't discussed that at all. I mean, I don't see that, but you don't know. I mean, I think I'm speaking because you're looking at me and I want to answer.
No, well, you're speaking, so I'm
Yeah.
looking at you.
But, I think that a lot of that money, or, we should be looking at the fire equipment, fire stuff with that, in my opinion. We really haven't had that discussion. I don't even know what the number is. I mean, if you're saying it's 500,000, I guess that's what it is.
Well, I think Mr. Kramer knows what the number is because and you should because you signed the application to the local finance board that has that budget in it. So I would assume that I would have assumed that you would know how much money was coming over from the fire district.
Exactly 500,000?
It's close to 500 grand, yeah. That's in their money market account. So, by the way, are you texting?
I'm not texting, I'm timing.
Okay, thank you, because it's very disturbing to have.
Well, I stop it when we answer you,
Okay.
as
Okay,
you would like.
thank you.
And she's doing a better job than I usually do.
Yeah, it probably would be easier to just have a timer, a regular, one of those stick timers. But in all these months, there was no discussion about how the money was going to be used, or what it was going to be dedicated to.
There was discussion that would have occurred at a public meeting.
Oh, I'm not so sure about that, Mr. Levy, in all due honesty, but.
Ms. Brooks, one thing I can tell you, can you stop that, Mark? One thing I can tell you is that at least my thought is immediately, we need to go get a fire truck. We had made a commitment, the voters made a commitment, the voters wanted a fire truck back in was it November of last year, and voted for a fire truck. It's our responsibility to go get a fire truck. I had some discussions with Chief Smith about it, and the other question was LoSAP. That's something that's moving forward. That's one thing that's happening as far as I'm concerned at the beginning of the year. And in terms of the fire truck, that's my first priority is, okay, what are we doing with the fire truck? And where are we getting a fire truck from? I've already had some discussions with Chief Smith about that. I know that he's talked to Doug Kramer about it as well. But that's my first priority in terms of where we go from here is let's get the fire truck.
And I just want to add one more thing.
Sure.
And we're not going to know how much we're getting until the fire district finishes paying whatever bills they paid at their last meeting. So that number you don't have a firm number until they're finished doing business. So that's when the actual tangible number that's solid will be conveyed to us.
Well, we do know how much is in their money market account, though. So, I mean, that's because that budget's presented every month at the district meeting, and it's very clear how much money is in the money market account, but.
$444,382.42 as of November the 16th meeting. As reported, that was the balance of October 31st, 2014.
Okay, so you do have the exact number as of.
October
that
31st.
Right, but that's pretty close, I mean, it is. And the only other comment, well, I have a couple of comments. One is that the devil is in the details regarding the two fire companies, since the two fire companies are really essentially one fire company, and the same people who are in Tabernacle 1 are fundamentally in Tabernacle in Medford Farms. The devil is in the details with regard to what each of those persons does, and will do, because there aren't that many people who put on a pack and do interior firefighting. So when you talk about hiring Tabernacle 1 versus Medford Farms, you're not really talking about, because there are a lot of people on the list, on that list of Tabernacle number 1 that actually never go into burning buildings. They might drive, they might act like fire police, but they don't put on a pack. So it remains to be seen how that company falls out and what activities it really engages in. And just the last point, that I know this seems to be a contentious point, but I still have to return to it, and that is based on our discussion at the last meeting, where I asked you for the substantiation of a comment that a claim that you made regarding the complaint to the prosecutor, and that I was speaking to many people, the public, before meeting, after meeting, that the township was under investigation, which in my view is a false statement. But at the meeting, what interested me is that you said that it was not, that you didn't think it was important to discuss, and my comment, what I have to say to that is that, truthfulness to the prosecutor is always important. So it is an important issue. And you also made a statement, Mr. Lang, that it was a moot point and that it wasn't worthy of discussion. And I can understand you saying that if you don't have the substantiation for the claim you made, but I haven't received any official response from the prosecutor, and I'd like to know if you have.
No, I have not.
You have not, okay. With that, I will end my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
You're welcome.
Jason? You know what, Jason, if you could, Mr. Cooper, I'd like to call on you next. You'd want to make a comment during the period you couldn't, but now you can. So, Jason, you're next.
John Cooper, 21 Woodside Drive. The comment that I wanted to make is the numbers that Doug had concerning the 2 different fire districts, okay? You can give a number of members. Some of them are fire police. Some of them are age restricted, they cannot go into the building. And that was something you really needed to find out before you voted on a fire company. If you've got 20 young guys that aren't coming over, and you've got the rest of them are old guys that aren't allowed to go into a building, you have an issue. And, he probably wasn't aware that there is restrictions and laws that prohibit certain people from going into the buildings. They can't put a pack on and go into the building. They can't take a hose in the building because of their age or physical ability. It was just something that should have been, it was a question that should have probably been asked. It wasn't. Too late. I have another question. At the last meeting, Mr. Lang brought up something about marshaling public input. Marshaling public input on the question about dissolving the fire district. We're not allowing public comment during that meeting, and you will marshal.
Were you here at that meeting, Mr. Cooper?
I watched the whole video of the meeting, yes.
Okay.
As a veteran, I strongly object to marshaling of anything. These meetings are supposed to be open to the public is supposed to have input into, the township committee is supposed to listen to that input. When you marshal, you do something that they do in Russia, China. That's communism, sir. Look it up. I would recommend you don't do it again because a lot of veterans will be very unhappy when doing the marshal.
Okay. Jason?
Jason Lewis, Back Force Report. Mr. Franzen, just because you said you know the numbers, those are the numbers from the fire district out to November 30th. Thank you.
Any other comments from the members of the public? Mr. Wood?
Stuart Brooks, 78 Morris Meadow Road. I want to follow up on a question that Mr. Cooper asked, and that is, how many people from each fire company actually do put on packs and fight buildings? Did you get that information? I guess that's directed to you, but I know that others on the committee met with those groups.
We did. We got numbers. Both
What's a firefighter one do? Is that,
Firefighter one is qualified to go into, if they are PAC certified, to go into a building. That is the requirement for a basic fireman. There are higher requirements for other tasks, but that is the basic requirement.
Could you give the breakdowns for that class and the higher class?
No.
well, we heard the number 24 given before. When Mr. Kramer gave his report, it wrote down 24 firefighter ones.
Doug, who did you meet with that comprised the executive committee of each fire company?
The officer was the executive committee.
Executive committee, it was their executive officers, a member at large, and a trustee.
Who are they? Who of each group did you speak with?
Their executive committee.
Can you give us names?
No.
Why not?
Why not?
You're contracting with
You know their executive committee.
I don't, that's why I'm asking the question. And my concern is that there's a lot of commonality between them. And I want to know who is it?
And I said there was a division between members who were joint in both, and members that were individuals on each side.
Will you tell me who you met with?
No, I will not.
Okay. How many lawsuits has the Medford Farms Volunteer Fire Company filed against the township since it began? Or how many are you aware of?
Since its existence?
Since its existence. I know of one. Do you know of any others?
I'm not that old.
I'm not
There's one
that
I know
old
of.
either,
I
but I know of
negotiated-
one.
I negotiated one. I
Okay.
negotiated a settlement with one lawsuit, but I'm not old enough to know about the other before.
Well, seeing that nobody knows of any other lawsuit except the one, I think it's terribly unfair and inaccurate of you, Mr. Kramer, to describe Medford Farms as litigious, since they filed one lawsuit that we know of in their roughly 60 years of existence. I'm sure that Township has filed far more than that, yet no one describes them as litigious. If you really want to get on with healing, get off that soapbox. That's just uncalled for.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Brooks. Any other comments from the public at this time? Kathy?
Kathy Berger, 18 Woodside Drive. I think where Mr. Brooks was actually asking one of the questions I was going to ask. With the executive boards, since there's a lot of dual members, what I wanted to know is how many were mutual members on the executive boards? Were there mutual members sitting on Medford Farms and on Tabernacle, responding to basically the same questions from the township? Okay, and they engaged in this conversation, they didn't abstain from it, knowing that they're members of both?
No, I had members from, they are their executive committee.
Correct, I'm just stating that, so they came and they represented themselves as one entity, and then they turned around and they represented themselves as another entity to speak to you about the same subject.
They came as part of the group.
Correct, that's, I'm just clarifying that, I just wanted to know that. And then, attendance policy. You guys don't have an attendance policy, correct?
For a committee.
Correct. Right. I'd like to see us look into that for next year.
Attendance for committee members?
Most definitely.
Okay.
I think there's been a lot of important things discussed this year, and not all membership here, and I think it's very important. And if you're not going to do an attendance policy, I'd say, because I think Mr. Yates made a very good point tonight about bringing the EMS back in, which of course was a very big discussion amongst all of you last week, or last meeting, and I think it would have been nice if all 5 of you could have been present to do the discussions at once. If maybe someone needed to review it, question something, put it off, table it for another meeting, I just think it would be nice to see. So I'm just asking that you consider that for next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Cal. Thank you. Adam? I assume you still want to make a comment because you didn't have your hand up. I assume you
Well,
can
the
come back.
employees, I'm sorry, so Adam Golding, 9 More Road West. I was at another meeting, so it is my understanding that you approved the resolution and you're going with Tabernacle Fire Company #1, correct?
Yes.
When do you anticipate for the transition and the takeover services to happen?
We didn't, the 2 things we have to do is, one, we have to finalize a contract that Doug is going to work on, and the ordinance will not go into effect until after it's published in the newspaper. Is that correct?
Upon publication, it will be, if the Brown County Times holds true to what it has done in the past, it will be on Thursday. And we would anticipate having a contract signed with Tabernacle Fire on Thursday.
So Thursday is when you plan on, like, Murphy Farms will not be serving as fire protection services for the town.
That's what I understand.
Is that what I'm-
That's what I'm hearing.
When the publication occurs.
Yeah, when the publication
If the
occurs.
publication, if it follows, if Brown County Times follows its present schedule where we have by Tuesday, it should be published by Thursday.
Right.
That's when it'll occur. If they don't publish it till Friday, it'll be Friday.
Right, I got you. That's all.
Thanks. Any other comments from the public at this time?
Ian McDowell, 14 New Road. It's been a long year with these important matters, dealing with the fire department. And just recently, I know what has been brought up with what members are going to go and join Tabernacle Fire, or what members may choose to retire, as you put it. The right questions have to be asked. And I know a few people have brought it up. Why wasn't it asked, okay, of the 20-something people who have a piece of paper saying they're an interior firefighter, how many of them actually pack up and go into the building? I don't think these questions were asked. Of the 10, let's say 10, who aren't going to go with Tabernacle Fire, what are their ages? Are they 21, 23, 25, 28, 30, 31? I mean, think about it, I'm someone who's lived here my whole life. Those are the prime ages. Those are, if your house is on fire, maybe you have a loved one in that house, you want that fire extinguished, those are the able, willing bodies going into that house. But instead you want to say, oh, you know, that there's these other people who have a piece of paper, you know, yeah, they're not going to pack up. They probably haven't packed up since 1962 or something, but they got a piece of paper. You didn't ask the questions, you didn't dig. It's just like when I talked to you outside here one night, and during the meeting you interrupted me and you said, Ian, are people not responding out of spite? And then I approached you, it might have been the following meeting, and I said, out of spite, how about Mr. Vina running for fire commissioner 4 times, losing all 4 times, and then all of a sudden he comes up with this petition? Would that be out of spite? But that question probably wasn't asked. You never dug deep because you guys had an agenda. You knew, we all know, as soon as Mr. Vina handed in that petition with the signatures, this was a done deal. I mean, we're all sitting back there laughing when it was like, oh, let's see who they go with, Medford Farms or Tabernacle Fire. It was already decided. But the questions weren't asked, no one dug deep, your due diligence, your homework I've heard about never happened. So, disappointed and ashamed.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What do you plan to do in terms of your career? I mean, do you plan on, are you a member of Medford, and you're a member of Medford Farms, are you a member of Tabernacle Fire?
No.
Do you plan on being a member, or have you asked for an application?
I went and asked for an application, which I would hope some of you guys even asked for an application just to see what it said, because that's what I wanted to see. So anyone can say, hey, everyone's feel free to get this piece of paper, we're giving it to you. Like that's like a big deal. It says you have to get 2/3 vote. Well, if you have people who don't want you to be a part of it, how are you going to get that 2/3 vote? It's not going to happen. So I think, let's say that number 10 that you came up with, let's say those 10 people go and get the piece of paper and go through filling it out, and getting their background check, whatever they have to do, fingerprints, whatever, and then they just don't get the 2/3 vote. They're probably just going to skip that and go join Medford Lakes, Vincenttown, and Chemung. But I got a young family, so maybe I'll, enjoy a few more meals and more playtime with the kids. Good one.
Thanks. Any other comments from the public at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the public. Need a motion to adjourn, please? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Wait for